All right, so you have gotten to the second to the last step. So that's amazing. Big round of applause. Thank you again for joining us for Project 4, the Sea Turtle, with Pretty Penny Pre-Cuts and myself, your stitching host, Laura Bosma, and the Southeastern Quilt and Textile Museum. I hope that these projects have given you at least the illusion of some fun in the sun as we all kind of socially distance and do what we need, quarantine in our homes to stay as safe as we can in a very unusual time. We're on step 9, where I want you to actually steam press your stitches to set them. And so we're back to kind of what we did at step 5. So after you were sure you loved everything and you kind of looked over your work and you want to make sure you haven't left anything unstitched, I want you to go back to that press cloth. So whether you had one from the Floss and Notions kit, or you came up with one in your own, or you have a really good steam iron with lots of holes, I want you to cover your work and I want you to steam press again. If you have forgotten, pressing is an up and down motion. It's not a scrubbing side to side. We want to go up and down. With wool applique, we're looking at 7 to 10 seconds over each area. One of the concerns is, isn't that going to make my work go really flat? It will temporarily, but don't worry about that with wool. You're not damaging it by doing what we're doing, steam pressing. You're making all those knots and stitches kind of work their way even more permanently into that light Steam-A-Seam 2 fusible that is between your cotton and your wool. So, remember with the press cloth, you can tell what's dry by how it turns color and it dries out. One more interesting property about wool that I may not have brought up with this project, I might have in the earlier ones, is that wool is a very interesting fiber to work with. I've told you before, I believe, it's highly sustainable, meaning you feed the sheep grow wool, you shear it off, you give them a haircut, and they grow it back. So that's one thing about it. But the other thing about it is that wool has the ability to absorb 30% of its weight in water and just hold it. So how weird is that? Well, it's weird and not weird. Certainly during the Civil War, that's how our soldiers, didn't matter what side they were, they had wool uniforms. If they got wet, they still stay warm enough. If it was hot, the wool gives off the moisture back into the environment, and it was just like the body sweating, it helped cool them off. So a lot of environmentalists are telling us we need to go back to times of old and have a little bit more wool in our homes, because when it's too humid, like a Georgia summer with lots of rain, the wool will absorb 30% of its weight in water, and when our home gets too dry during the winter, the wool will allow the water to be reabsorbed into the environment and make it less dry. So that's basically what you've just done. You've set all those stitches, you've pressed them into it. Over time, it'll take moisture back on in your environment and kind of fluff back up a little bit, and it won't hurt it at all that we smashed it a bit to get it from a damp press cloth to dry, but we will have set all those stitches where they won't want to come out. And I'll meet you back here with the final segment. Thank you again for joining us.